Hello, Ian here from Dark Blades Workshop. Welcome back to another video. This is the second part of the Hagrd and Harry on the motorbike. Okay, here we go, the second part to finish everything off. Let's get straight into it, exactly where we left off. Hope you enjoy it. Cheers. So next up we're going to glaze into the highlight areas with orange, and I'm going to get a drop on the palette. You don't need a lot of this stuff, so just about a drop there, and then I'll add in at least 8 drops of water to it. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got a really runny consistency. Get some paper. Now, trick with this, because it's super thin, get some on your brush, wick it away. See how the liquid explodes away? That's just the liquid in there, it's not the pigment. Pigment stays in your brush. I'm going to add a little bit more water actually. Yeah, right, that's what we're after. And I'm going to use it on this big guy, and just over the highlighted areas, so get rid of the excess off your brush and then apply it on the side of your brush. I really doubt whether this camera will pick it up because of the harsh lighting I'm using. I've got 2 triple bright daylight lamps either side of my painting area, so I'm not sure this is going to show up, but in the hand it's really nice. Or if you're Welsh, I'm from Wales, it's lush. Or lushman. It's lushman. So you get a bit of cultural education as well, I see. Right. Yeah, because we've got blue in the shadows, if you think about it, orange is the opposite to blue on the colour wheel, so it makes perfect sense to use it. It's a classic combination in your pro painters when they're doing their display pieces and that. They'll use, if you look, you'll see blue and orange used quite a bit. Whether the blue is like a non-metallic metal, or one that springs to mind is Alfonso Banshee. He did a large-scale dwarf ages ago, and that was like a blue non-metallic metal and an orange beard, and it just works beautifully, you know, that colour combination. So I'm going to apply it to the other guy now. So there's not much on my brush, as you can see, and I'll even feather it out at the edge. Just water, even though it's super thin. I think it brings a bit of life to the brown as well. recommend you try it. Just make sure it's super thin though. And you only need a couple of passes on it. And you know, it just brings a bit of warmth, a bit of life to it. Okay, so I think the overcoat is done. Just need to finish off the bike now. Okay, so we've got a little puff of smoke or exhaust fumes that's coming out the pipe at the back of the bike down there, and I'll have it going up the way. So I'm going to do it with the airbrush because it would be a lot quicker, but if you haven't got an airbrush, just dry brush it with some greys and just go lighter towards the top. Leave the bottom bit black. This is German grey, but I'm going to put a quick layer of black from below, so I'll spray that away with some black, and then above then with some lighter greys. So nothing much to see here apart from just giving it a quick blast from below. Okay, so I've got some dark blue grey. Yeah, brush now. And I'll just do a general one from above, 45 degrees at least, and then so we've still got shadows below, but what I'm going to try and do is get a bit on the main part. Yeah. Okay, so all the dark blue grey is in there. I'll add some blue grey pale to it. Let's give it a quick shake. So bring it up to about 50-50 mix. I'll add some thinner to it as well. Give it a mix in the cup. Okay, so 50-50 blue-grey pale. So what I'm trying to do is add shadows to the top of each section of, you know, like a cloud formation, each little bubble. So I've got a highlight there, I want shadows down here, highlight there, shadows, highlight, shadows. That's the plan anyway. So I'll go one shade lighter now. So I've got blue-grey pale on its own now. And I'll attack it from above. So I'll check the flow on my glove. Yeah, put some there. Okay, it's getting there. Shade lighter now. Okay, so I've got white grey now. Sorry about that. So I've just gone at the top of each section again. I think I'll leave it there for that colour. Don't want to go any lighter, so I might think about darker now. So I've got my favourite shade colour now. It's Payne's Grey ink. Let me just show you. This stuff, brilliant for shading dark greys and blacks. Just gives it a lovely blue hue to it. Because I hate doing greys as they are. I always like to add a little bit of blue to them. But this stuff is amazing. So I'm going to test it on my thumb, so I've got a bit of flow, and I'm just going down the bottom of each section now. Just pushing out a little bit of shadow. See how thin it is. It's I'd say about a drop of ink to about 6 drops of thinner. Very thin. Of course, when you use that, you need to drop your pressure on the airbrush as well. Okay, let's leave it there. So what I'm doing now, I'm swapping to the brush. I've transferred what was left of the Payne's Grey into a well of the palette, and I'm just going to apply it with the brush now, because I know it's really thin. I'm just going to throw it on the bottom of each section. And I'm going to feather it off at the edge and push it back down into the shadow area. For this one I'll circle around. And you can do a couple of coats of this until you're ready, until you like what you see. But just go easy on it. Don't flood the area. Just take your time and build it up. And that'll look a lot better. I know it's not really worth spending this amount of time on a puff of smoke, but I want to. It's such a lovely model. Right, leave it there. So onto the hair. I'm using dark blue grey with a little bit of heavy blue grey in it, and I'm going to use my trusty makeup brushes to do the dry brushing. These are about £4 for a set of 20, probably mentioned them before. I'm just making sure I've got all the excess off before I move on, and I'm just going to move across the contours. I just want to pick it out to start with, and then I'll switch to the brush. It's just to make it more visible, shall we say. Okay, so I've been glazing for about 5 or 10 minutes now on this part and on the tank. I'll just show you what I've got. I've got, that's the magic blue, but I'm using this dark Prussian blue. So it's not even a drop of paint in there, and I've mixed it with a lot of water, so it's very, very thin. I'd say about 4 parts water to 1 part paint, and I'm using it as a glaze now. And what I'm doing, I started about there and pulled the paint down that way towards the bottom, because that's where I want the shadow. And each successive glaze I'll start further towards the ground, so further to the right. So I'm about here now, so I'll put another glaze on there. And this is all about intensifying the shadow. So once I put a glaze in, I'll wet my brush. Not too much, I'll put too much water on my brush there, but just feather it off. So when that's drying, I'll go to my sky blue glaze. Same amount of water, very, very thin. And I'll pull the pigment up the way. So I get a highlight at the top of the tank. So I'm hardly touching the center of the tank, which is the magic blue base coat, isn't it? So we're starting to get a bit of contrast there. So I'm doing exactly the same on the tank. So I've still got the sky blue, and what I'm doing, I'm starting about there and just pulling the pigment up just a little bit, and then I'll start further up and pull towards that middle again, and do little dots just to try and pool it in that area, and that'll give us a nice highlight. So that's about 3 passes I've done on that, so I'm going to do another shade down the bottom just to get a nice bit of contrast going. And I think if I do another highlight on there when it's dry, I'll try and do it in a smaller area again inside where I've been. So I'll just get some more sky blue. Just Make sure it's dry before we go in. So I'll get rid of the excess on a paper towel. I'm in a smaller area, so I've gone within where I've been before. I'll just try and pool it. And when that dries, you get a stronger highlight. It's worth, doing about 3 or 4 passes just to build it up. You might not even see it on the first pass, but every subsequent one you will see a difference. So I'll go for more shadow down here, just at the bottom part. And wet my brush. Oh, feather. So that's how I'm doing those parts. So I want to get a nice highlight on that, the most prominent part of the tank, shall we say. And I might put another glaze on the tank. I'm going to go from the edge of the highlight area down. I'm going to leave it there, I think. Apply that highlight to the outside of the lamp. So that's where I'm moving on to next, is the headlamp. So for the headlamp, I'm going to switch things up a bit. I'm using turquoise. So I've got that and a light turquoise and ivory. So I've got the ivory sitting there. Light turquoise with a little bit of ivory, light turquoise on its own, and turquoise. So what I'm going to do, I've already base coated it with turquoise and given it a quick highlight with the light turquoise. So now I'm going to build up the highlights like you would a gem. So I'm going to have the highlights up here in a crescent shape and the shadows down here. So move this out of the way so we can focus in on what we're doing. So this says highlight now with the light turquoise. While we're there, I'll add a bit of, I've got Payne's Grey on my palette at the minute. I'm going to add that to the turquoise colour and make sure it's watered down quite a lot. So I'm going to glaze down the bottom now. To get that shadow. Pulling the pigment towards the edge. So highlight now with a little bit more ivory in there. and shadow. So it's back and forth. So I'm going to add more ivory to the light turquoise, so we're almost getting to the realms of a sky blue now. And I'm just going to do a crescent line. And I'll take ivory on its own. Let's put a reflection dot. Line there. I think that'll do for now because we're going to glaze over it anyway. So I'll move on to the visor of the sidecar. So this, I've been using the same colours as the turquoise on here. So I'm going to go back to the turquoise colour on its own. And I'm just going to build up the colour towards the centre by adding ivory to it. And much like we were doing the highlights on the tank, I'm pulling the pigment towards the centre of the the centre of the screen there. Let's make sure it dries in between each coat. And just build up using the ivory. Start off within the area that we've just done, and if you can move further up the screen as well, so you get like a V-shaped highlight. Leave that dry and go in again. You see it building up. More ivory. I think I might need more water. I've got pure ivory in a minute. But first I'll put a shadow in. So this is the turquoise with some a bit of Payne's grey in it. And just pulling it down into the corner. And I'll just feather that bit off there. So I'm going to speed things up and do a final highlight with just plain ivory, and that's a bit too intense. So I'll just dip the tip of the brush in the water and get rid of some of the excess and then try it again. So I haven't cleaned the brush totally. I've just diluted it on the brush. So I think, yeah, we'll see what that's like. I think it's too dilute. So I'll go back, add a little bit of paint. So I'll leave it as that for a reflection. So we've got shadows down the bottom. It needs more shadows, but you've got the idea of how I do it. So I'm going to add more shadows. Happy with a highlight. So I'm ready to move on. Alright, so moving on to Harry. I've used, where's it gone? Vallejo's Pastel Blue for the tracksuit top. The hair is Necro Grey. I've done the flesh. I need to highlight everything up, but there's plenty of other tutorials about for the flesh, especially the one where I painted Lucius. If you want to follow that, it's exactly the same. I think it's Cadian flesh, Kislev flesh, Reikland flesh shade, and then highlight up to flayed one flesh if it needs it. So, done the pastel blue. What I'm going to do is just put another coat on the hair actually, so that's ready to go. So what I'm going to do is pick out a colour for the t-shirt, which is, I think it's going to be a red. So I'll just use Vallejo's bog standard red, and I'll see where that takes us. So I'll just drop a bit on the palette. I think is a particularly bright colour for that he has on in the film, but this should do, I think. So you're not really going to see it. You'll be concentrating on the bike, I think. So I'll just put a layer on. And we'll shade the blue next with a little bit of, well, I think I've got a Citadel blue glaze. Sorry, I'm just taking my time to get the colour right. So I'll get that glaze ready now. So I'm just going to apply this glaze, but it looks a bit strong, so I've added, well, the same amount of medium to it, so it's half and half. And I'm not going to let it pool too much, I'll just run the brush over and move it around a bit if there is too much pooling. I just want a little bit of shade on it. There's too much on the arms, I reckon, so keep moving it around. It's just to change the tone slightly. Okay, so I'm just going to add a red wash to the t-shirt. And again, it's just making sure we get it in that shadow area there, because there's a couple of little ripples on this t-shirt, so I'll just try and get it in there. So back to the pastel blue, just going to layer on over the highlight areas. Consciously trying not to go anywhere near the red because it's still a bit wet. Just a little bit under the arms because that's going to be in shadow. You're not going to see much of the back because it's against the seat of the sidecar, so we'll just do the top half. And then it's just a pick of the folds on this shirt then. Which there are many. Okay, so I'll just add a little bit of ivory to that for the highlight. I think with the highlight we'll just concentrate on the arms. So while I've still got the Necro Grey on the palette for his hair, and I'm going to go along the lines down his tracksuit, and I'm just going with the tip of the brush around the outside of them first. And then I'll fill them in off camera because I can't get close enough. Okay, apologies for that, I just couldn't get close enough with the camera and the optivisor and stuff. Anyway, what I normally do for that is, as I say, I go along the outline of it first, both sides, and then I find it easier to fill it in between the lines rather than do a line down the stripe to start with. I think if you make any mistakes, it's harder to correct it. So you do the outside first, do any corrections, then just fill it in. So that's the stripes done. I think we'll highlight the red. So I've got, as you know, we use red for the base coat. I've got scarlet now. There you go. So I've done a 50-50 mix, and I'm going to apply that to the raised parts, which are across there. I'll try and get it right up to the tracksuit edge. And then I've got scarlet on its own. I'm working in a smaller area, and I'm pulling the pigment down to that edge, staying within where we've been on the last pass. I don't intend to highlight it more than that really. If it needs a bit of shadow when it dries, we'll see. So I'm going to do the skin now, and we'll come back after that stage. Okay, so I've done the face best I can with the arms in the way and the glasses. I haven't done the eyes because they're horrendous to get inside the frames of the glass, so I just did a little dot of flesh. You're not going to see it at this scale anyway. So I'm moving on to the hair. So I've got, remember we used the Necro Grey from scale 75 for the base coat, so I'm using Vallejo's pale blue grey now for any strands that I can pick up towards the top of the head. And let's take it very carefully. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put a glaze in over the top of this. So I'll carry on catching the raised areas now. I don't really want to come down too far, but they are quite prominent. So now I'm going to move towards the parting now on the crown. So I'll start on that side and just pull up a second pass. Same on this side now. So the highlight should be more intense along the top. Okay, so I've got Vallejo's Night Blue. It's a really dark blue, so I'm going to use this now to glaze the hair. but I'm going to go from the highlight area, which is the top of the head, and I'm glazing this way down to the bottom. And it's very, very thin. You can probably see if I use a towel here, you can put some umber brush. And I just got so that might be a bit too intense actually, so I'll add a bit more water. Yeah, that's better. So it just explodes away. So from the highlight area, which is the parting, down to the bottom of the hair. And we'll leave that dry and probably do another pass actually. There you can see it's dulled down the pale blue grey just a little bit, which is what we're after. Next stage is a bit of black. So I've got some black now, and I'm going to run it along the parting. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in between each strand now if I can. Make sure you've got a good point on your brush. And I was going to put it under each highlight as well. I'm going to do a second highlight now with the pale blue grey, but it's a lot thinner than last time, so it's about a glaze consistency. And I'm just going to hit the hair towards the parting. Just be very gentle. It's only a subtle little highlight that we're after, as we're going to glaze the whole thing now with a little bit of black, or necro grey. I think we'll go necro grey again. I missed that one earlier. Okay. So the final stage for the hair is the necro grey, but I've thinned it down to a glaze, and I put a little bit of the blue glaze already on my palette in there as well, so it's a bit of a different tone really. So I'm just going to glaze the whole thing now. I should tone everything down, but leave a nice highlight on the crown then. And that'll do. I think we're there, Harry. Okay, Hedwig, we're getting near the finish line now. Off-white, a little bit of pale blue grey in it. And I'm just going to pick out the raised feathers. Try not to go right into that, that dark area like a fold.
don't want to go there because I want to keep that bit of shadow. So I was about 3/4 of the way up the feather. Same on the next layer. Let's pick them out. I'll just work on this side, I think, because it'll be exactly the same technique. Please don't push the brush that way. You won't go into that shadow area. So a bit like a dry brush. So second pass. So the next one is just off white on its own. But halfway up this time. Take a couple of passes, I think, but we'll be ready to move on to the pure white in just a minute. Let's get some white. So if you didn't want to paint it, I'd just dry brush it. And if you didn't want to spend this much time, just get the white out and dry brush over the grey with, with white. Should speed things up a lot for you. If you notice, I didn't go down towards the body with these last few coats. I'll try and leave that shadow. So if you apply that
to the rest of the bird, you've still got shadows there and you've got a nice highlight on it. Okay, so I've applied that to the whole bird now, and we've got a bit of contrast, so I'm happy with that. Next up is the face. Now, looking at the box art, he's got yellow eyes and a black beak, so I'm going to use dark blue grey, and I'm going to do outlines for eyes to start with, because they look fairly big on the box art. But there's no, can't really see where they are on the sculpt. So it's just guesswork, I think. I'll just try and match them up on both sides. Yeah, it's not great, is it? So I'll get the beak in as well. Can always correct it with white over the top. So as long as it's semi-symmetrical, I need to do that left eye down the bottom a bit, so I'll get a bit closer and do it off camera. Okay, so I've done my best with a rubbish face sculpt. It's like hardly any definition. I think that side is quite rough. I think it should be quite smooth on the box art, but anyway, I had a go. So yeah, Avalanche Sunset and then a black strip down. I need to sort that beak out because it looks a bit wonky, but I'll do that off camera. So I'm ready to glue the parts together. Wish me luck. Okay, there we are, all put together now. Another one off the list. Lovely model, really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Sorry it was such a long tutorial, but there's so much to it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it anyway. So if you need any help on this model, give us a shout in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Just want to shout out to the Patreons as well. Thanks very much for your support so far. It means the world to me. It really does. So thanks a lot. But that's it for me for now. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.